Welcome to our Facebook Live, where UC Davis Mind Institute experts provide information about neurodevelopmental disabilities. I'm Mary Ann Sharp, and today we'll be talking about UC Davis Redwood SEED Scholars, a first in California 4-year residential college program for students with intellectual disabilities. This program is now in its second year, and applications are currently open for the third group of scholars who will start in the fall. Redwood SEED is a collaborative effort between the Mind Institute, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at UC Davis, and UC Davis Continuing and Professional Education, and it is funded largely by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. We have an all-star cast this evening, including a current scholar and her mom, an instructor in the program, and the program's co-director. Yay! So you don't want to miss this. Let me introduce everyone. Okay, first off, we have Beth Foraker, who is the co-director of the Redwood SEED Scholars Program. Hello, Beth.
Hello.
And we have Sophie Howarth, who is a sophomore Redwood SEED Scholar. Hi, Sophie.
Hi.
We have Maeryta Medrano, who is Sophie's mother. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
And Lisa Yamasaki, who is a Redwood SEED instructor. She teaches a sexual health course for freshmen and sophomores. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, everybody.
All right, it is wonderful to be with you all. And to everyone else who is watching, if you have questions about the Redwood SEED program, please do put them in the comments and we will answer them toward the end of our discussion. We already have a number of questions, so we will get to those as soon as we can after we let everyone chat just a little bit about this amazing program at UC Davis. Okay, I think, Beth, we better start with the broad overview. This is a new and developing program. It's so huge for UC Davis and for California. Could you just tell us exactly what is Redwood SEED and what are the key components of the program?
Sure. So if you consider what young adults have as far as opportunities in the state of California, we have quite a few community college opportunities. Those are called C2Cs. Then we have some programs at some Cal States, and then very few in 4-year universities. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Education puts forward a grant to fund inclusive college programs for students with intellectual disabilities. The goal is improving life outcomes, outcomes in academics, outcomes in employment, outcomes in independent living, outcomes in pursuing your hopes and dreams. And so our program is a 4-year inclusive college program. Our students live in the dorms for the first 2 years and on campus with other first-year students, and then live in apartments with other students, UC Davis students as well, on campus for years 3 and 4. Our students take foundational courses. They take courses, so those are courses just created for them. Then they take courses at UC Davis in their area of interest, and they also have employment. And the goal is to build those employment skills and communication skills and executive functioning skills and all the skills so that when they graduate, they can make a living wage or have what's called competitive integrated employment.
Wonderful. That was a really good broad overview, Beth. I do think it's also important to let everyone know it's a non-degree program. It is for California residents only at this time, ages 18 to 23, and you do need to have a documented intellectual disability.
Yes.
Okay, Lisa, now one of the big questions that people have is, what are the classes like? How hard are the classes and all that? You teach one of the courses, sexual health, and in talking with the scholars over the last couple of years, it's always listed among the very favorites. So could you talk to us a little bit about what are the classes like? What are the academic expectations?
So for the freshman year, fall quarter, the freshmen get 5 core classes that are just taught for the SEED scholars: literacy, math, self-regulation, communication and technology, sexual health. And so
civics, social.
And civics, yes. And so the 6 courses are scattered throughout the week from morning to late afternoon. And so everybody has a schedule, and those courses are really to build the cohort together and also to develop foundational skills so that the scholars can ease into becoming more independent, living away from home, and being at UC Davis. So it's a great opportunity to also learn content, learn new skills, but also really gain some new relationships together. And then the sophomores this year, they get to take some foundational skills as well as go out into the UC Davis campus and take classes within their interests, their own personal interests.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about, Sophie, if I could. What classes are you taking that are outside of the foundational courses? What are you taking?
I'm taking American Studies. It's like a UC Davis course that I really love a lot because it's basically most about cultural and natural circumstances about what's really happening outside.
Wonderful. Is that the first elective course you've taken? Do you have other plans for additional ones?
For my future one, I would like to take a museum course.
Oh, museum course. Tell me what's that? What would that be about?
Well, basically, my mom's an architect, and so she and my dad are both museum planners and things like that. And that's when I decided that would be really interesting if I took a museum course at UC Davis.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Wow, very cool. Okay, so Sophie, this is your sophomore year, so you're the veteran there, helping the newest class, the freshmen. I'm kind of wondering if you could just give us like the broad overview of what you like best about being in Redwood SEED Scholars.
I really like being at the Memorial Yoga Center, where basically there's like restaurants down there. There's also like places to hang out and socialize with my friends. I also like riding my bike down there is really amazing. And I also go into the library. The library is super nice and super quiet. That's why I love it, because I like reading, and that's one of the main purposes of it. And I really like hanging out with my friends, basically. And I like going to restaurants and going to movies.
Okay, all sounds pretty good to me. What about internships and jobs? You've had at least a couple of those, right?
Last quarter, I took an internship working at the Arc Recreation Center. It's basically like a gym where I like clean all the equipment that they use at the recreation center. And now this time I'm taking I'm working in the vet school, and it's really amazing because basically I'm packaging mail for people who have a dog or cat problems, and so they can like take care of them.
Wow, do you get to actually interact with the animals while you're there at all?
No, I don't interact with animals. I'm at the front desk.
Okay. So you're who people see when they come in.
Yes.
Awesome. Wow. So do you have ideas for future jobs or internships that you're interested in? Or are you really loving the vet school?
I'm really looking forward to working with the elders because basically right now I'm helping my mom and dad around the house. And also is I'm already having experience with that. And so when I go so in the future, I would like it if I would like dance with them, do fitness with them. I think it would be really fun.
Okay, last question, and then we'll ask Maeryta if you're really helping around the house. How is life in the dorms? Are you liking it?
Oh, I love it. It's fantastic because I'm with my roommate a lot, and I picked my own roommate. And we go do laundry together. We do independent things together, and we like watch Netflix, watch Disney Plus, and sometimes we like read a book together and do things more together.
That sounds wonderful. Independence sounds great, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I know you're a swimmer too. I know I said that was my last question, but I can't resist asking about swimming. Are you getting to swim? Sophie's has swum with the Special Olympics and has even won a gold medal, I believe, at one point, right? Are you getting to swim during college?
Here and there, it depends on my busy schedule because when I'm at Davis, just like more classes to take and more jobs to do and more tasks. So it's getting a little bit harder and harder to find space to do swimming. So I do swim, but maybe like on the weekends, I would swim.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, Sophie.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
Maeryta, tell us about, from the parental perspective, what has it been like having a scholar in the Redwood Seed program, and what attracted you to it also in the first place?
Well, it's an amazing program. I mean, there's been so much independent growth that we've seen in Sophie. And I mean, just, she's just finished her second, the quarter of their second year. And even from last year to now, the amount of independence is just phenomenal. What we've seen, little things, like you said, what does she do around the house? I mean, even before she went to UC Davis, she always did her own laundry and helped with cooking and setting the table and, doing things like loading the dishwasher and loading. But now it's so, you can see there's so much more motivation to do everything herself. So even today with this Zoom call, I asked her, again, I remember when we applied and Chuck and I, my husband, her dad, were sitting next to her. And in a couple of other Zoom calls we've done, we've been sitting next to her. But I asked her today, do you want me to sit next to you or do you want to be in your own box? And she said, I want to be in my own box. And I said, okay. And, some of the reactions, Chuck and I are older, and some of the reactions that Sophie has at dinner is so funny because, she'll say things like, we'll say, well, Sophie does this and Sophie does that. And Sophie says, I'm right here. It's me. It's I. So just the language and the vocabulary self-awareness is so different than it was even a year ago. So those kinds of things are really, they're subtle, but they're really have a lot of impact. And you can see it in her interaction with other people that, in our family and friends, just so much more confident and independent in the way that she presents herself and the things that she wants to talk about. What attracted us to it, is in the Mercury News, the East Bay Times, like 3 or 4 years ago, there was an article about it. And we thought it was amazing. And I think Beth had her email in there. So we wrote to Beth and said, well, this is an amazing program. How do we get in on it? And I think at that time it wasn't ready yet. But somehow we stayed on the list. And when the applications came due, which is shockingly fast, when the program first started, when they got the grant and then when the program started, I think it was maybe 9 months. So it's a real startup. Was a real startup. The applications for us, this applicant pool is in the fall. Ours is in the spring, and it went boom, 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 boom. So all the requirements were hunting around for her, IEP and the documented intellectual disability that Beth mentioned, and we looking around for, evaluations and letters of recommendation. It was going really fast. And we were crossing our fingers that she would get in because it was the only program that she even wanted to consider to move out of the house. Everything else was she wanted to live with mom and dad. And when we talked about UC Davis, this program, we said, do you want to go? You live on campus, you live in the dorm. It was like, that's it. That's the only one that she was interested in. So, we were interested in it for her, but she was interested in it herself. So that's a little background on that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that really gives great perspective. Now that we're in the third round of applicants, hopefully it won't be quite as rushed. Definitely some things where Beth moved mountains to make this program happen. So thank you for that, Beth. I do have a question for you, Beth. We've talked about this before a little bit, but I wanted to get into it a little more deeply, that inclusive college really dramatically increases the chance for meaningful, successful employment and independence. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the ways in which the program is constructed to make that happen.
Absolutely. So currently, if you look at the state of California's outcomes for adults with intellectual disability, it's very dismally low. We use a circle graph that has about 3% and then another 5% making supported employment. But even in all the best data, not accounting for the tragic pushback from COVID. We had a lot of employment losses due to COVID. Let's say we have 17% of people with intellectual disabilities gainfully employed. When you attend an inclusive college program, that number moves to between 65 to 80%. So all the communication skills that Maeryta noticed improvement, all the feelings of independence, the ability to manage schedules, manage your time, imagine your life after graduation. Think of, where can I live? Who can I live with? What could I do as a job? What kind of jobs do I like? All of those things in those 4 years start to happen for you when you go to a program. In addition to that, we start building the stamina. So you start working at an unpaid internship spring quarter of your freshman year. Now there's a lot of data. So we're about 10 years behind in building these programs in California. So we have a lot of data from other programs nationwide that is shared. We all share best practices. And there's a big predictor that if you get paid employment when you're in an inclusive college program, you have a much higher chance of getting paid employment after college, which makes sense, right? So what's been beautiful and amazing to see is UC Davis step into this opportunity as an institution, and UC Davis Health. So we had only 9 students looking for jobs that first spring quarter. They went looking, different parts of campus said yes. So UC Davis Library, UC Davis Rec Center, the Craft Center, Outdoor Adventures, UC Davis Police, UC Davis Media, UC Davis Women's Volleyball, all said, we will accept these people, even though we've never had people with intellectual disabilities in our workplaces before. They worked in an unpaid internship for 3 hours on a Friday. They had an employment mentor, which is an undergrad or grad student at UC Davis supporting them. They did so well that all of those places said, we want them to come back and we want to pay them. And then, of course, our students, that was a good fit for some of them and not a good fit for others. And so they adjusted and moved. And so in fall quarter, we had them work 2 shifts, 2 3-hour shifts or 2 4-hour shifts. So building their stamina paid. So they worked three of our scholars worked at the vet med center or vet hospital, doing all different things. So shout out to them, giving paid employment without even working with our students last spring. We have UC Davis Women's Volleyball, the library, the police department, and now the Disability Student Services Center said yes. And the Craft Center couldn't pay because they're all volunteers. So they said, well, we'll pay in classes, which is super cool too. So then we even had one student work an entire full day Friday for 8 hours. So they've started to get paid. Now next quarter, winter quarter, they'll work a little bit more. And then we'll adjust, does this feel like a good job? Do you want to try something else? Like Sophie just said, she's interested in doing something. And then we customize all of these opportunities to the student. So now Sophie said that, we will go, oh, who is willing to have, Sophie, who she wants to work with elders and potentially doing dance or some sort of instruction there. So it's really been beautiful to watch.
Yeah, that's wonderful. The paid employment is everything.
It is.
Wonderful. Lisa, I know courses also help prepare for future employment. Could you maybe give us some examples of the sorts of projects or assignments that the scholars are assigned that help them in that way?
So each one of us instructors are different, but for my course, I really focus on the communication about safety, self-determination, self-advocacy, along with, we're learning a lot about our own personal rights that at this age we should know about. And with all those rights come responsibilities. So, I just want to make sure with the scholars in sexual health that we're learning about safety, rights and responsibilities. We do role play, we do computer work using the learning management system Canvas, just like all the other UC Davis students. trying to use all of the accessibility tools that become available to students and teaching them how to use the tools so that they can take those skills and decide to use them in their other courses or in work. But specifically for work is explicitly looking at the relationships that we're making and how work relationships at work have different kinds of behaviors. So we talk a lot about work behaviors, friends behaviors, mentor, how the behaviors we have with our mentors or instructors, and just really explicitly talking and role playing those things so that it becomes natural to be able to shift. Sophie might be working alongside her best friend, but at work, we're going to be behaving differently because we're at work. So I want to make sure that the scholars have the skills and the knowledge so that they don't accidentally mix up the behaviors that they have with certain people at work.
Sophie, what sort of assignments or projects stick out for you as being your favorites?
I really like playing Jeopardy at the exposition. It's like one different body parts. And I asked my dad and mom about and okay, so what is it's something for 500. And then mom had it right 3 times. And she's really good at it.
That was a great game. I don't know who invented it, but that was a great game.
Yes, indeed. What about when you've done the expositions that this is at the end of, for sure, fall and also the end of spring, right, Beth? The scholars sort of present what they've learned and there's some sort of project. Do you have a favorite project that you presented at the exposition, Sophie, at any of them so far?
I really like sharing with the American Studies project because Sarah Barnes did a Google Slides with me and to have me write down top 5 highlights of what I learned in that course.
Wonderful. Okay, if you're just joining us, we are talking about UC Davis Redwood SEED Scholars, which is an inclusive non-degree college program for students with intellectual disabilities. They live on campus, they take courses, they have jobs and internships, and applications are currently being accepted for next school year. They are due by January 6th. I have that right, Beth? Okay, just checking. And we have posted the link to the application in the comments. We're talking with Beth Foraker, who is the co-director of the program, Sophie Howarth, who is a sophomore Redwood SEED Scholar, Maeryta Medrano, who is Sophie's mother, and Lisa Yamasaki, who is a Redwood SEED instructor. If you have questions, please do put them in the comments. We are going to get to some of the questions from the comments right now. So let's get going. Our first one is, my 2 children with Down syndrome are entering high school next year. Should we do a diploma or track? Excuse me, a diploma, track, or certificate? What gives them the best chance to apply to a program like this? Okay, maybe that's a good one for you to start with, Beth.
Sure. So we have 1,000 school districts in the state of California, 1,000. So some are super progressive and inclusive, and that is Davis Joint Unified here in the city of Davis. And then some are still operating with segregated settings and less expectations for people with intellectual disabilities, lower expectations, and everything in between. So we don't want to penalize any student for the school district that they're from. We want anybody to apply. So we accept high school diplomas and we accept people with certificates of completion. And the only sticking point is that we only accept California students. And that is because the need in our state is just too great right now.
Okay, and you just answered the next question, which was, will kids on the certificate track qualify?
Absolutely.
The answer is yes, right? Okay, moving on, what are some good IEP goals that would help set students up for a successful application? Anybody want to take that one?
Yeah.
Lisa, I think that some IEP goals would be around independence, self-advocacy, and being able to set short-term goals and long-term goals for the individual to be able to make their choices, have some determination, and then plan out the steps to achieve some short-term and long-term goals.
I would add that one of the things I remember that came up was whether or not, some of the other Redwood Seed Scholars had spent a night away from their parents. And Sophie had been to Camp Creme a number of times, so she had been, but I know that some of the others hadn't. And I think Beth, you advised to try it. The parents are going to go out somewhere. You're going to be home alone. You got to be home alone to feel comfortable. The parents need to feel comfortable. And I think that's a big step, both for the prospective student and also the parents. We were really nervous the first time we left Sophie by herself. And I'm going, the fire drill, the earthquake drill, where's our emergency phone numbers, all that kind of stuff. But I do know that, that's one of the things that the students really should feel comfortable with, being able to do that. And then the other thing is for the IEP goals is to be able to learn those independent daily living tasks, like learning to do your own laundry, folding it, putting it away, taking your meds. I mean, Sophie takes her own meds every morning, cleaning up, taking out the trash, the things you mentioned earlier. So those things, sometimes when you're in high school or you're even in college to career, you don't think of those things because you're still living at home and your mom, dads do it. But I think those are really important. And then just scheduling, getting your schedule on the calendar, learning how to show up on time, getting out of bed with the alarm clock, on your phone, and, getting yourself up ready, using the showers, cleaned up, grooming, get the class on time. Those are all things those practices that are daily skills every day, not only for Redwood Seed, but for in your future, for when you're going to go to your job, are significantly important for success.
Does that all sound good to you, Sophie?
That sounds great. I also would like to add self-awareness.
Right.
Very excellent suggestion. All right, boy, we have a lot of questions coming in. Okay, next. How will this work for students with uninvolved parents, no parents, or non-English speaking parents? Okay, that's a good one maybe for Beth.
Yeah, so we just did an info session that is a Spanish speaking info session. So if you are not speaking English, we have it on our website, last year's version, and we have a new one that will be coming up shortly. As far as uninvolved parents or parents who don't have the bandwidth to know about all of this, we are working with transition programs, school districts, SELPAs, all sorts of places trying to get people and educators to know about this opportunity. We definitely have students who have lower involved families, and it shouldn't be a requirement to have an involved family to be part of the Redwood Seed Scholars program. So we have plenty of UC Davis students who are first gen and, definitely are maybe participating with less family involvement. Not necessarily, I'm not trying to say all first gen students are that, but you know what I mean. So we have a lot of UC Davis students who might not have that level of support, and we definitely need to have that represented at UC Davis Redwood Seed Scholars too.
Okay. We have our next question is, are there different credentialed programs? I assume that means within Redwood Seed.
Yeah, I think people think, so since we're not getting a degree, what are they getting? What are they graduating with? So this might help. We are a brand new program. We're still in development. So we are only in our second year of having students, and we're still developing what our students will graduate with. We do have a full 4-year course of study that we're operating on. And all of this is used from the data and the best practices provided by Think College. But most likely our students will graduate with something called an integrated studies certificate, which is very similar to what other Think College programs are graduating with. And it will probably come from continuing and professional education, because that is right now where our program is housed and where our transcripts and how you apply is all through continuing and professional education. So that certificate will be following a course of study, and you will be graduating with this certificate. But it will not be, some other continuing professional ed certificates are, let's say, flower design or construction, or it won't be specific like that, unless we have a student who says, in their person-centered plan, I really want to do flower design. And then we will be like, all right, let's figure out what are the requirements of that certificate and try and figure it out. But we really follow what the student is saying they would like to study and do for employment.
Really individualized.
Yeah.
We have a great question here. Is there training on personal finance as part of this program? I have a middle schooler, and if he came to the program, it could potentially be his first foray into paid employment. Good question. Do we have training on personal finance?
Well, we definitely have a math and budgeting class that is a foundational class that is happening for our freshmen, but we do have math and budgeting for all 4 years as a foundational class. But in addition to that, our students who live on campus are given something called Aggie Cash, which is $200 to use, just like any other UC Davis student in the Memorial Union that Sophie was talking about, or at the market, or other places on campus that take this money. And honestly, Aggie Cash is the best budgeting around because it goes quickly and they start paying attention. And then as soon as it's gone, you only have it $200 per quarter. And then once it's done, and you really feel it and you notice it. So we have noticed a huge growth in our sophomores fall quarter of this year. A lot of them ended up having some Aggie Cash. Well, I won't say a lot. Some of our students ended up having some Aggie Cash left over. Our freshmen, no way. I mean, I think they all burned through their Aggie Cash within week 3, and we're surprised, right? I mean, we're like, wow, I don't have any Aggie Cash left. So that is really, and again, for your families, if you're doing that, get your child a debit card, give them $100 and watch them, follow it on their computer or with their app and see how fast it goes and start learning about spending money.
Sophie, what was the Aggie Cash experience like for you? Did it go fast?
Well, it's like I use my Aggie Cash a little bit too much. I'll tell you that, because I am trying to budget myself, but every time I try, I end up using all of it, and it's already gone within a week or so.
Well, inflation doesn't help, I'm sure, right?
That's
Right.
Budgeting, yeah, it's definitely something that you have to learn. It's hard for all of us, I think, sometimes.
It is.
All right, thank you. Okay, our next question is, let's talk about money. This is a good one. Is this program free? So this answer might be a little complicated. We might need to hear from more than one. Shall we start with you, Beth?
Sure. So, okay. There's 2 giant state agencies in our state, the Department of Rehabilitation and the Department of Developmental Services, who deeply care about the outcomes for people with intellectual disabilities in our state. The Department of Rehabilitation has come on board our program, supported our program from the very beginning, and if your employment goal aligns with what the Redwood SEED Scholars program offers, they will pay for your tuition, your transportation, which is a bike, and your technology, which is a computer or a phone as needed. So that is DOR. So that whole piece is paid for all 21 of our students. The living piece, which is room and board, and our mentors, when we really haven't talked about our secret sauce, which is our mentors, that currently is being funded by most families out of their own pocket. Some students have some regional center budgets paying for a little bit of that, but our goal is to be vendorized and to have all of those pieces funded through the regional center. And we have submitted our vendorization application, and it is working its way through the process. But I know Maeryta is going to talk a little bit more about other ways to do some funding that for all families just to know about.
Well, I was surprised, because Sophie's been a client of the regional center since she was born, that her classmates, not all of them were a client of the regional center. And so I would advise anyone who is not to get on it, because it took quite a while for a couple of her friends to become or to be accepted as a client of a regional center. They actually applied to the one up near Davis, Alta, because they were going to be living up there. And it took quite a while to get that student in. The other thing is with DOR is the earlier the better. I remember again in high school, the first year of college, Sophie's instructor took them all over to both DOR and Social Security, filled out all the forms when they're 18, and because it's harder when you're older. It's much harder when you're older to be accepted. And again, a couple of her classmates had not been in Social Security and had not been DOR. And so that process sort of delays the opportunity for funding from those sources. So it's very important to, talk to your counselors at school, ask them, if you can file for that now, and get those all three things going. I think with the funding with the regional center, it's challenging right now because it's a new program. A lot of the regional centers didn't know about it last year. They're just learning about it now. They don't like the word room and board. So, the first year the invoices came with room and board on it, and we all, freaked out because they won't pay for room and board. And now the invoices come differently. It's for the Redwood SEED Independent Living Laboratory, which, cross our fingers, a couple of the parents have had those invoices paid by our regional centers in the SDP program. So again, if the vendorization comes through, it may be a path for not having to go through SDP, can just go through traditional services and have it paid that way once the vendorization is accepted. However, our regional center said even if they got that, they may not accept it. We're fighting them all the way. Sophie, it took a year of her to get into SDP. We're thankful that they paid the invoice in the fall. DOR paid the tuition in the fall. But I would say it's not easy. You have to really be on top of it and get all that paperwork in. So it is possible, but it's an effort. You have to do it. And I just wanted to answer the question about parents that aren't involved. The parents of the students that are accepted coalesce and around each other and help each other. And I know of one student whose parents aren't as involved, and another parent is helping them with their regional center stuff, all those challenges. And we all help each other. I mean, people send me emails and check emails all the time. How'd you do this? How'd you do that? What about that? We post, deadlines and things like that for people to be aware of. There was a grant, I think the Ruby's Rainbow grant for people with Down syndrome that I think one student at least applied for. So there's things like that to really, ask our group, and we help each other find solutions to it. Every student is different. Every solution is slightly unique, but the more we can help each other out and let each other know what we're doing. It's complicated, but it's doable.
The community is great. We had a quick follow-up to that, what is SDP?
Well, SDP stands for Self-Determination Program, and it's a fairly new program, although it was piloted for a number of years for an alternative to traditional services through the regional centers. And you have to go through a little bit of training to even apply for it. And it's there's a whole SDP website, Facebook group, Parents with SDP Disability Voices. Log on to those Facebook groups. Every other Wednesday, there's a webinar about those programs and different topics in Spanish also. It's for people that have been in it, it's been really good. For people that are getting into it, it's very complicated. You have to go through the, PCP, person-centered planning, then kind of like an IEP, but it's not called that. You create a budget, it has to get approved. They have to have codes. You have to have a financial management, an independent facilitator. So it's very complex. And your regional center will probably have a link on there about the SDP program, and we'll give you some orientation videos or YouTube videos to learn about it. But I didn't know about it when Sophie was accepted either. And I'd say maybe a quarter of the parents did know about it and had gone through it and liked it. And so we decided to try it, but it took a year for her to actually then get all the paperwork in and all. It's not our, delay. It was the regional center's delay in actually processing it. And
Wow.
it didn't help that it was during the pandemic and people were leaving and people had COVID and then they left and you got somebody else. And so it was complicated that first year.
I think this is really helpful, Maeryta. In fact, we were able to put the link up for SDP in the comments, so check that out if you want to learn more. This might be a good question for Sophie. What is a typical day or week like for the SEED scholars?
So yeah, sorry. So basically what I do is in the morning is that I would take my medication and then I would get dressed, put a jacket on, go to breakfast, go to class, and then after class, maybe do a little bit of homework. And usually I have a break until I have sexual health at 3:30. And then I sometimes I would exercise, like dance or go to the arc and work out, that sort of thing. And yeah, that's my typical Monday for me.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that because one of the things, like I said, about learning independent skills IEP goals was the daily grooming. And, now Sophie takes a shower every night. And I remember in the very beginning, one of the parents said, no one's clean. They're not taking showers. And Beth said something. Yeah, that's something they're going to have to learn. They're all like that. And now she's on it. I don't even remind her anymore about, taking a shower and brushing her teeth and things like that. She's got it. And I just see the growth there, a tremendous amount.
Does anyone else want to add anything about a typical week, Lisa or Beth?
Typical week, some of the things that are in there, there's always sporting events that scholars are going to. There's social activities on campus and specific to Redwood SEED that some of our mentors organize and put together. There's a lot of food options on campus that are paid through the reg fee, their housing fees, and so I've seen scholars going all over campus, going to all the different dining commons and trying this and that out. A lot of foodies.
I would say one thing we didn't bring up is the students, at least in Sophie's case, is in a quad. So there's two roommates and then they share a common area where their desks are. And that quad bonding is amazing. They help each other out. So during the day, their schedules, they're constantly interacting with each other and reminding each other, did you do this? Did you do that? Sophie's roommate is always reminding her, Sophie, did you do this? Did you do that? And they've all become really good friends. So that quad situation, even the sophomores and the freshmen now is an amazing situation in the dorms. And I think that you wouldn't think about it, but the fact that it is 4 makes the variation of who you're interacting with even richer. So it's not just one person, you're interacting with 3 other people. And, there's social dynamics that is another independent living skill. How do you get along with people that you didn't know? They're strangers, they're different than you, they have different habits, different ways of doing things, may even speak a different language. And navigating that is a really important skill. And I think, Sophie's really learned, that, kind of way to get along with people and mitigate conflict and talk with people. So it's been that situation in the dorm has really been amazing. And I think that what's so important about the Redwood SEED program is the students are living in the dorm with other college students, other UC Davis college students. And you can't overlook that dynamic. It's so important.
Sophie, I was going to ask you, hearing your mom talk about what it's been like with roommates and your quad mates, how has that experience been in terms of making friends for you?
Oh, I love it. It's really, really fantastic because Rachel and I get along very, very well. We're both really helpful for each other. We do things independently, but we're also doing things together. That's what makes us a really a good combination of me and my roommate Rachel, which is really amazing. And Nina for sure, and Elisa, my mates, and they're also really amazing because first of all, Nina and I laugh a lot, which is awesome. Because we every time we talk about something, like we joke around, that sort of thing, we just have our heads off, and it's really great experience with that. I just love it so much.
Sounds like your dorm is a fun place to be.
A couple of the things
Definitely.
to note is that last year, a couple of the roommate quad mates who lived in Southern California became really, really good friends. They're roommates this year. They learned to fly independently home to Southern California, both going there and coming back. And they've been doing it several times now. And that is a huge step. And Sophie actually flew independently with her boyfriend to Santa Barbara this fall by herself. And I thought, I don't know if that's going to work. And we're like crossing our fingers, and it totally worked. And she had a great time. She went down by herself and came up by herself with her boyfriend, who is another Redwood SEED Scholar. So that's a huge step and a tremendous demonstration of independent living skills.
Yeah, I love
And
these success stories.
those two sophomores then were able to fly with two freshmen.
Right, right.
For the camp to be here. So again, just mentoring. So our sophomore Redwood SEED Scholars mentored freshmen flying on their own to come to camp at the very beginning in August. So these skills not only are happening for them individually, but then you're watching other people do it. So you think you can do it too. So we have another student who is learning how to take the Amtrak on his own and find the path from campus, learn the path from campus to the Amtrak station in Davis, and then Amtrak home. So because he did that and he posted it, we all communicate on Slack. He posted it on Slack. That planted a seed for another student and thinking, well, if he can take Amtrak, I can take Amtrak. If these guys can fly, I can fly. So this cohort model, which is different. So not all programs have a cohort model, but our cohort model is really powerful and impactful because of those opportunities of learning that aren't just happening for you by yourself, but they're being shared for others.
Yeah, and thinking about some things that happened her freshman quarter, Sophie's glasses broke, and stupidly parents, me, did not send her second pair of glasses up with her when she moved in. And it was so funny because her friend Karis was determined to help her re-engineer the glasses so that they would stay on. And the two of them worked on it for hours to try to get these glasses to stay on. And they make such good friends and they help each other out. It's really amazing to watch and to hear about later on. I mean, it's really funny. Some of these stories come up like 6 months later and go, really, you did that?
Well, Karis is our MacGyver. She can shout out to you, Karis, if you're watching.
So we are running short on time. There's so many questions. I do want to get to just a couple more if we could. And I love the engagement and the interest. One, and this is directly relates to why we're holding this today, which is applications are open. What types of scores or assessments are required that we should get from our school district before applying?
Okay, so I just want to make this very, very clear. You just have to have an intellectual disability. That's what's required. So these are the requirements. You have to be from California. You have to be between the ages of 18 and 23. And the reason for that is because of the dorms. The dorms require you to be no older than 23. But if you enter our program at 23, you can be 24 in the dorms. So they've allowed that little glitch. So you just have to enter at 23. You have to be able to take medicines on your own, and you have to have a documented intellectual disability. You also have to be able to stay for 4 hours independently on your own. Okay, so what kind of skills do you need? There is no reading level that you have to have. There's no math level that you have to have. There's nothing like that. So what you have to have is a strong desire to go to college, a strong desire to independently live. You have to be willing to accept responsibility for things. You have to be learning those independent living skills like Maeryta was talking about, but you don't have to have them all in place. For sure, our first crew of freshmen and our second crew of freshmen did not have all their hygiene going, and that's okay, right? I meet with them each week, we talk about it, we problem solve, we figure out some them some things to try, and then we keep working and growing. You have to be able to follow directions. So you do have to be able to follow directions, but you don't have to be some high achieving student. We want diversity in our program. This is racial diversity, socioeconomic diversity, diversity of disability, geographic diversity, diversity of gender. So all of it we want. And so we want you to apply. You're not going to know if you're a good fit or not until you go through that process. I want to shout out one of our freshmen, Matt. Matt applied to the program and did not get in, and then reapplied last year and did get in. So when he didn't get in, he said, what could I do to make my application stronger? And we gave him some suggestions. And when he reapplied, his application was stronger and he was a good fit for our program. Also, you have choices. Families, you can look at other options in our state and see. Sophie is a great example. Sophie went to the Laney College to Career C2C program. That she got all those skills and then was ready to go to a 4-year college program. So if you apply to our program and you don't get in, perhaps there's a C2C program that might be a good place to start for you. There's all sorts of programs up and down our state that are doing new and innovative things. There's a lot of momentum in our state. And then of course, there's a lot of options outside of our state. My own son goes to a program all the way across the country in Virginia because there was no 4-year inclusive college program here in California. So, and we have a whole list. I have a whole list that I would love to share with families of if you do not have an intellectual disability, but you need support, you have learning disabilities or some other things. I have a list of colleges that offer support for you. So I'm happy to share that with anyone also.
Yeah, we can put that in the comments as well. We've put a bunch of other links in there, stories about Redwood SEED Scholars. We'll put the Think College link in there, some great videos about the scholars. I think we have time for just 2 more quick questions that came in. The first one is, can students apply for federal student aid?
So we are in the process of becoming a comprehensive transition program. That's called a CTP. If you go to Think College, you can see all the programs that have the CTP designation. That's a federal designation. We are applying for that. We don't have it yet. Once we have it, then all applicants and all students in our program can get a Pell Grant or can apply for federal funding.
Okay, and then why isn't it a degree program? Is there an avenue to create a modified degree program for students with intellectual disabilities or with disabilities, period?
Okay, so the reason why this is a non-degree program is because our students have intellectual disabilities. So they could not go through the UC Davis portal and apply and become UC Davis students. That's why they're not UC Davis students. So our students need more support. They need more direct, explicit instruction. They need more. And the giant UC system doesn't offer that in a degree program yet. So what our students, the goal of our program really isn't a degree. The goal of our program is skill development, all sorts of skills, communication skills, employment skills, executive functioning skills, life skills, independent living skills, all of it. That's the goal of our program so that after graduation, you can live the life you want to live on your terms with your hopes and dreams. So our students go through the portal and apply through continuing and professional education. The degree, the certificate that they will be granted will be through continuing and professional education. And that is why, because it is not a degree seeking program. Our students, one thing that sets our program apart that is very unusual and very cool is that our students do earn academic credit for their UC Davis courses. And so Sophie just completed her American Studies class this past fall. She earned those UC Davis units. So upon graduation from our program, if she were to say, hey, I want to keep going and I want to get my bachelor's degree, she could take some of those units like a community college applicant and approach UC Davis and apply through that portal. And perhaps she will have all the skills where she's ready to do that and participate in that way without support, right? There's no support right now for those students applying through UC Davis. So I think people think since it's a non-degree program, somehow it's a lesser program or a negative. It's not at all. It's just different. It's for people with intellectual disabilities who need support. And so our systems don't have that category yet in place. And so we're adjusting the system so that our students can still be full members. They're still full members of UC Davis campus. They have access to everything that any other student would have. They participate in all the programs. They live on campus fully. They are full members of UC Davis. So there is no kind of diminished status for them. And it's okay that they're not getting a Bachelor of Arts degree. That's okay.
Okay, very well said, Beth. I think we better wrap it up here, but we did get a lovely comment that said, this is so inspiring. And I have to agree. I wanted to give each of you just a quick moment. If you had any word of advice for prospective students, for scholars who are looking to apply, what would it be? And why don't we start with you, Sophie? What advice do you have?
I have really good advice. I would say this is our Redwood SEED program, and I hope you have a great time experiencing your life here at UC Davis.
Okay, thank you. Maeryta, any advice?
Yeah, I'd say, again, I mean, the applicant pool now has a longer period to do it, but it takes a while to get letters of recommendation, to get your IEP with the documented intellectual disability described, all that paperwork, ready to go for the application process. And it took a while to track people down even. So I would say start early. It's not one kind of disability. So, the range of people that are in the Redwood SEED is pretty broad. And the friends that Sophie has made is not just with people with Down syndrome or even with people with Down syndrome. It's a very broad range. And again, I would say that don't limit yourself to thinking, my child doesn't have Down syndrome, so I'm not going to get it. That's not what it is at all. I think it's really important to think about stretching and trying. As Beth said, Matt didn't get in the first year and he came back and did it again. That's part of independent living skills, is like really striving and trying to improve. And so, don't self-limit. I think that's one of the things that we all talk about, is don't self-limit, try. And you may be surprised. I was crossing my fingers. I was doing all the math, thinking all these people are going to apply. And there's Northern California, Southern California, girls and boys, and thinking, we don't have a chance, but we're going to do it anyway. And we were jumping for joy when Sophie got accepted.
Awesome. Okay, Lisa, any advice?
I definitely agree to start thinking early. Just be thinking early. Have an open mind and just be thinking and looking, and keep your eyes open and your connections connected, and finding out new things, because you never know what's coming next somewhere else too. So just keep looking and keep open.
Great advice. And Beth, you can have the last word.
Well, my advice is just every little step you do matters. So let's say you don't get into our program, but you've filled out the application. Just the act of imagining yourself going to college and filling out that application and figuring out who would be my recommender and what would I study or think about in college, that moves you further. Every little step moves you further. So self-selecting out and being like, oh, wow, that's way too hard, and forget it, doesn't move you at all in your personal growth. So I say, why not go for it, right? I mean, we shouldn't have a program at UC Davis, but we do, right? Only because we went for it. So, I mean, just like you're saying about crossing fingers and getting into the program, we were crossing fingers to get federal funding. Only 25 institutions across the country are funded, and there's far more doing great work who should all be funded. We never thought we'd get funded, but we did, right? So you have to just go for it and try it. And if it doesn't work that time, you still had a lot of growth, and you'll grow a little more each time. So that's my advice. Just keep going for it.
Great advice across the board. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight. And thank you to everyone who was watching for joining us for this UC Davis Mind Institute Facebook Live. I encourage you to share this post if you have family or friends or anyone else that you think would be interested. We will also post this recording on the Mind Institute's YouTube channel, and there it will live forever, so you can always watch it again if you missed something. Thank you so much for joining us.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was founded in 1998 with the promise to reduce and prevent the disabilities that can be associated with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Every day, our clinicians and researchers make progress on that promise. Our groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions associated with disability are helping affected individuals achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website or our social media platforms to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.